Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Grant W. Ellis, and I'm 35 years old. I'm sitting in a silent condo that feels both entirely mine and deeply contaminated, like the walls absorbed the last 48 hours and are still replaying them when I blink. Everything looks normal. The clean counters, the throw blanket folded on the couch, the city lights pressed up against the glass. But the air feels wrong. It is a strange thing to realize you were the target of an extinction-level event, and you walked away with nothing but a clear head and a hard drive full of evidence. Not relief, exactly. More like a cold, sharp kind of clarity. The kind you get after you miss a car accident by inches, and your body keeps bracing anyway. My hands are steady, but my mind keeps returning to the same sentence, over and over, because it still does not sound real in my own memory. She said, "I'm pressing abuse charges unless you pay." And I said, "Do it." Not because I want to fight, because I knew, with a calmness that scared even me, that I was holding the truth in high definition. Her name was Brielle Lawson. She was 32, smart, polished, and good at making people feel like they had been chosen. We were together for 3 years, and she lived here with me, in the condo I bought long before she came in my life. On the surface, we looked like the couple people envied. We traveled on weekends. We hosted friends for game nights. She had a marketing job that sounded impressive and came with the right kind of buzzwords. She laughed easily in public, squeezed my arm at parties, and used me when she talked about plans. There were even moments, quiet ones, that felt real enough to build a future on. A Sunday morning in bed when she rested her head on my chest and said she liked that I made her feel safe. A night I came home exhausted, and she warmed leftovers without asking, then sat beside me and said, "We're a team, okay? I've got you." Another time, I told her something I almost never tell anyone, that my father's death left me with a permanent allergy to chaos, and that I needed my home to feel like a sanctuary. She traced a slow line on my wrist and said, "Then I'll protect that with you." Those words mattered to me. I believe them. And that belief is the part that still makes my stomach turn. The transactional current was always there, just quiet enough that I could pretend it was normal. Little things at first. Her car suddenly started having problems, and the solution was me buying a new one. I did, because I could, and because she promised she would pay me back. We put it in my name for financing, and she said it would only be temporary. Then her money became her money, and my money became our money, which mostly meant my money became her emergency fund. She had a way of presenting wants like they were obvious necessities, like I was the unreasonable one for needing a conversation. If I hesitated, she did not ask questions. She performed disappointment. She would go quiet, then offer a sad little line like, "I just thought you believed in us." I flagged it internally more than once. I even told myself I should draw boundaries. But every time I started to harden, she would soften at exactly the right moment. A kiss on my cheek, a sweet text in the afternoon, a hand slipping into mine in front of friends. It created a fog where logic kept slipping on the floor. I loved her, and I kept making excuses for things that did not deserve excuses. The catalyst was my annual bonus, significant enough that you can feel the weight of it in your plans before it even hits your account. I had earmarked it for investments and a kitchen renovation. This place is mine, and I take pride in that. The kitchen was functional but dated, and I wanted it updated with intention, not impulse. I told Brielle my plan one evening in the living room, expecting a normal conversation. Her face felt like I had announced a betrayal. Then she informed me, very calmly, that she had already planned a month-long trip for us, a shopping run through luxury stores to refresh our look, and a down payment on a high-end watch for herself. She did not ask if those were things we could afford or wanted. She presented it like a budget report. She said she had it all mapped out, and she spoke about my bonus like it was a shared pot of money she managed by default. When I told her no, the air changed immediately. I tried to keep my tone steady. I said we needed to be smarter with our finances, that her spending was becoming a serious issue, and that I was not a walking automated teller machine. She said I was controlling. She said I was ungenerous. She said I was financially abusing her by not letting her spend my money the way she saw fit. It was absurd, a masterclass in twisting language until the person setting a boundary Looks like the villain for having one. I try to pull it back to reality. I said, "This isn't me cutting you off, Brielle. This is me saying you cannot spend my entire bonus on a whim. We need to be partners in this." She stared at me, and her eyes did something I still cannot forget. The outrage drained off her face like someone flipped a switch. It was not sadness. It was calculation. She said, "So that's it? You're just cutting me off?" "Me?" I said, "Now I see what this is. You're breaking up with me." I told her the truth. "If you think a relationship is contingent on you having unfettered access to my bank account, then maybe we should be." She stood there for a moment, quiet, and I expected tears. I expected an argument. I expected the performance. Instead, she delivered the line that changed everything. She said, "Fine. You want it gone. It'll cost you. I've given you 3 years of my life. I need $50,000 to get back on my feet. Consider a severance package." I actually laughed, a short, sharp sound I could not stop. I said, "You're insane. I'm not paying you to break up with me." Her face hardened into something flat and merciless. She said, "You will, or I'll go to the police and tell them what you did to me tonight. How you got angry about money, threw me against the wall, and threatened me." Then she leaned into it, with the kind of confidence that comes from believing a threat is a guarantee. She said, "A man with your job in this building, an abuse charge would ruin you." They always believe the woman. My blood went cold, not because I thought she was right, because I knew she was willing to do it. The shock burned away the anger and hurt and left only icy resolve. I looked at her and realized I did not recognize her at all. Predator is an ugly word, but it fit. I also remember my greatest asset. 3 months earlier, there had been a string of car break-ins in the parking garage. It spooked me enough to upgrade my home security, and I did not do it halfway. I had 4 high-definition wide-angle cameras professionally installed. One covered the front entryway. One covered the kitchen. One covered the main living area. One covered the balcony door. They recorded video and audio 24 hours a day on a loop to a local hard drive with cloud backup. I told Brielle about them when they went in. She called it overkill, joked that I was turning the condo into a fortress, and then, like most people who have never needed proof, she forgot they existed. I never forgot. Every second of that conversation, every accusation she was now threatening to invent, was recorded from more than one angle. I looked her dead in the eye. My voice came out unnaturally calm. I said, "Do it." She blinked, thrown off. She said, "What did you say?" I said, do it. Go to the police. File your report. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go straight there and tell them your story. I will not be giving you a single cent." Her confidence wavered for the first time. She tried to recover. She said, "You think I'm bluffing? I'll do it, Grant. I'll ruin you." I said, "That is your prerogative. Now please pack a bag and leave my home." She stared at me, searching for fear. She expected to see me fold. She found none. My refusal did not compute for her. With a final venomous glare, she stormed into the bedroom, packed a single suitcase with her most expensive belongings, and slammed the door behind her on the way out. The moment the door closed, I moved, not in panic, in procedure. I went to my office, opened the security software, and isolated the footage. I exported the entire relevant period from when I got home from work until the moment she left. 6 hours and 14 minutes of pristine 4K video and crystal clear audio. I saved it to a new encrypted external hard drive. Then I saved it again to a second drive. I sat for a second and listened to my own breathing, because even with proof, the threat still left a residue. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. The best criminal defense attorney in Chicago, someone a colleague had used before. His name was Martin Whitaker. His voice was calm, like he had heard every version of human chaos, and nothing surprised him anymore. I explained the situation concisely. He listened without interrupting. When I told him she made the threat explicitly and the cameras recorded it, he said, "Good. Do not contact her. Do not respond to her, her family, or her friends. Do nothing when the police call, and they will. When they call, you say only this: I will be happy to cooperate fully, but I will not provide a statement until my lawyer is present. Then you call me." He paused, and his tone sharpened slightly. He said, "We let her walk into the trap she set for herself." That night, the hard drive sat on my desk like a black monolith, holding the truth. I stared at it longer than I should have, thinking about how the entire difference between my life exploding and my life staying intact was a small piece of technology and my decision months ago to install it. It took 4 days. 4 days of silence that felt like a slow poison. I kept wondering if she had thought better of it, if she realized the risk. But someone willing to threaten that kind of lie is not wired for self-preservation or logic. They are wired for escalation. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. A detective from the Chicago Police Department, voice professionally neutral, asked me to come to the precinct to discuss a complaint made against me by Brielle Lawson. The implication sat heavy in the air, even through the phone. I followed Martin's instructions word for word. I said I would be happy to cooperate fully, but I would not provide a statement until my lawyer was present. Then I called Martin, and we arranged to meet them the next day. I walked into the precinct with him, the encrypted hard drive in my briefcase. We were led to a small, windowless interview room. 2 detectives sat across the table. The lead detective introduced himself as Daniel Miller. His partner, a quieter man, sat with his arms folded, watching me like he had already formed opinions he would not admit out loud. Miller laid it out. Brielle had given them a performance. She claimed her argument over money turned violent. She alleged I shoved her, that she hit her head against drywall, that I screamed in her face and threatened that if she ever tried to leave me, I would make sure she had nothing. She produced a faint bruise on her arm and claimed it came from me grabbing her. She cried. She acted terrified. She was convincing enough that they photographed the bruise and opened a felony domestic assault investigation. Miller looked at me and said, "That's a serious allegation, Mr. Ellis. We'd like to hear your side." My mouth stayed closed. Martin spoke first. He said, "Before my client says anything, we have something you need to see." Martin placed the encrypted hard drive on the table like he was setting down a weapon. He said, "Detectives, this drive contains a complete video and audio recording of the entire evening in question, captured by a professionally installed home security system. Approximately 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., multiple angles. Continuous audio." Miller's eyebrows lifted before he could stop them. The partner's posture shifted, subtle but immediate, like the room just tilted. Miller said, "You have the whole thing on video?" Martin said, "Yes. Every moment." They took the drive and led us to another room with a computer setup. A tech officer plugged it in. I provided the password. The files came up, time-stamped, clean, undeniable. I directed them to the main living room camera feed at the beginning of the argument. We watched the calm conversation about my bonus. We watched it turn into an argument with Brielle's voice rising while mine stayed level. We watched her accuse me of financial abuse. Then came the critical sequence. The video showed me standing several feet away from her at all times, never closing distance, never touching her. It showed my arms crossed as she delivered her ultimatum. The audio caught every word with ruthless clarity. She said she needed $50,000. She said it was a severance package. Then she said she would go to the police and claim abuse if I did not pay. The room was so quiet I could hear the computer fan. When the moment of the bruise arrived, it happened fast. Brielle stormed past me toward the bedroom, then swung her own arm into the doorframe at the exact spot where the bruise later appeared. It was not an accident. It was sharp, deliberate, and almost casual. Miller leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The partner made a sound under his breath, disgusted. Then Miller held up a hand and said, "Rewind that." The tech officer dragged the playback bar back. We watched it again. Brielle's arm, the doorframe, the impact. Again. The third time, the room went completely dead. No one spoke. It was like the air had been sucked out. Miller stared at the screen, then looked at me, then looked at Martin. His professional neutrality was gone, replaced by grim anger. Not at me. At her. He said, quietly at first, "She did that to herself." Then his voice hardened. He said, "And she did it while trying to extort him." Martin leaned in, calm but sharp. He said, "As you can see, detectives, my client is not the perpetrator here. He is the victim of a malicious false report and an attempted theft by extortion. We are prepared to cooperate with any investigation you open into Ms. Lawson's conduct." The shift in the room was immediate and unmistakable. I had walked in as a suspect. I was leaving as a primary witness in a new case. They took a formal statement from me documenting everything. They kept the hard drive as evidence. When we stood to leave, Miller shook my hand. His grip was firm, and his eyes held mine like he wanted me to understand he did not take this lightly. He said, "I'm sorry you had to go through this, Mr. Ellis. We'll be in touch." That evening, the smear campaign began. Brielle, blissfully unaware of the footage, sitting in police custody, went on the offensive. Mutual friends started texting. One said, "I can't believe you put your hands on her." Another said, "She's a wreck. If you did something, you need help." Her sister posted a vague, pointed message on social media about cowardly men and strong women and family that protects. I did not defend myself online. I did not argue. I followed Martin's advice and went silent. I blocked numbers I needed to block. I deactivated my social media accounts. Let them scream into the void. Truth does not get louder by competing with lies. Still, the social part stung in a specific way. Not because I cared about everyone's opinion, but because I had been careful with my life. I had built it deliberately, and now a woman I loved was trying to set it on fire for money. The week after the precinct meeting was quiet legally, but loud everywhere else. The whispers continued. A few people avoided me. A few people said nothing but watched, waiting to see which narrative won. I went to work. I went to the gym. I cooked meals like normal, just to prove to myself I could. I tried to scrub the feeling of my living room being a crime scene from my mind. Then Martin called. His voice carried the first real, weightlifting news. He said the district attorney's office reviewed the evidence. They were dropping the domestic assault investigation against me, and they were moving forward with charges against Brielle Lawson. He said, 2 counts, filing a false police report, and attempted theft by extortion. Hearing that did not feel like victory. It felt like my lungs finally remembered how to expand. The next day, I got the social closure that mattered most. Not a public spectacle, not a cartoonish humiliation, just accountability. One of our mutual friends, a man named Trevor, called me directly. His voice was tight, embarrassed. He said, "Grant, I owe you an apology. I shouldn't have texted what I texted. I heard the police have video." I stayed quiet. I let him sit in it. He took a breath and said, "I believed her because it was easier than imagining someone could lie like that. I'm sorry. I was wrong." I said, "Thank you for saying it." He asked what really happened, and I told him only what was necessary. The extortion threat, the cameras, the self-inflicted bruise. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm going to correct what I said to anyone I said it to." He did. Within a day, 2 other people reached out, softer and cautious now, saying they were sorry, saying they had jumped too fast. That reversal, quiet, real, and earned, was the first time I felt something like vindication instead of survival. Brielle did not take consequences gracefully. She escalated in smaller, dirtier ways. My office human resources department received an anonymous email alleging I was unstable and aggressive, a danger in the workplace, that they should investigate my history of violence. It was rambling and incoherent, but it was clearly meant to plant a seed. Thankfully, I had preemptively spoken to my supervisor and to human resources the day after the police called. I did not spill every detail, but I told them a former partner was making false allegations as part of a breakup, that I had provided exculpatory evidence to law enforcement, and that the matter was being handled legally. My company stood by me. They reviewed the anonymous email, recognized it as harassment, and dismissed it, keeping a copy for documentation. Then Brielle's mother called. She was crying, voice shaking, trying to summon sympathy like it was a tool. She said, "Grant, I don't know what happened, but you can't do this to her. You'll ruin her life. She's a good girl who made a mistake. Please just tell the district attorney you want to drop it for the sake of the love you once had." My voice came out colder than I expected. I said, "Your daughter attempted to extort me for $50,000 and then filed a false felony report that could have sent me to prison and destroyed my life. This is not a mistake. This is a crime. The matter is in the hands of the state." I told her I had nothing more to say, and I hung up. Martin sent a formal cease and desist letter to Brielle's attorney demanding that she and her family stop all contact and harassment immediately. Every desperate move they made only added to the evidence pile, painting a clearer picture of intent and malice. 7 months passed. The legal process is a marathon, not a sprint, but when the case is built on high-definition truth, it moves with terrifying efficiency. Brielle's case never went to trial. It could not. The 6 hours of footage were irrefutable. Any defense she tried to assemble, confusion, fear, misunderstanding, collapsed under her own words and actions on that video. The district attorney's office was aggressive. They made it clear, through Martin, that false accusations like this undermine the system and make it harder for real victims to be believed. They wanted consequences to be real. Brielle took a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to 1 count of filing a false police report and to a lesser charge related to the extortion attempt. The most serious charge was reduced as part of the deal, but the consequences were still life-altering. The sentence came down the month after the plea. No jail time, which was expected for a first-time offender, but 3 years of formal probation, a $5,000 fine plus court costs, 300 hours of community service, and a court-mandated psychological evaluation and anger management course. The irony would have been funny if it had not cost me so much peace. A permanent criminal record followed her. Her career took a hit almost immediately. Background checks became a wall she could not charm her way through. She lost her job not long after charges became public record. The friend she was staying with asked her to leave. Her sister distanced herself. Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents in a smaller town outside Atlanta. A humiliating retreat for someone who prided herself on being a sophisticated city person who never depended on anyone, even while she tried to drain my life like a bank account. I wish I could say she learned something. By all accounts, she learned nothing. The story she told the few people who would still listen was one of victimhood. She said I used secret recordings to twist her words and ruin her life over a simple mistake made in a moment of emotion. The lack of self-awareness is staggering. As for me, the past 7 months were expensive, stressful, and deeply disillusioning. The legal fees were substantial, but worth every penny. Clearing my name was priceless. The experience forced me to look at my blind spots, my willingness to ignore red flags in the name of love, my habit of calling manipulation rough patches, my instinct to smooth tension instead of naming it. The condo is finally just my home again. I renovated the kitchen the way I originally planned, and every time I walk past the clean lines and new counters, it feels like reclaiming something that almost got poisoned permanently. I took a trip alone, and it was incredible, not because it was fancy, but because it reminded me I could breathe without negotiating my own peace. I reconnected with friends I had neglected. I have not dated, and I will not for a while. Trust feels far away, like a place I used to live but cannot find on a map yet. There was no screaming revenge scene, no dramatic confrontation. The most satisfying part was the cold, indifferent process of the law doing what it is supposed to do when truth is undeniable. My revenge was simply allowing the truth, in all its high-definition clarity, to be seen. I opened the door, and she walked into the cell of her own making. She tried to burn my world down for money, and instead she incinerated her own future. And the most damning thing of all is that it was all on camera, an unblinking, permanent record of the moment she chose to strike a match. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.